That's a Tap. I'm with DJ. I'm CT here to break down the recap of the fight night, UFC Kansas City. DJ, how are we feeling?
Feeling good, CT. How are you? What's up?
Great, great, great. It was a good card. We previewed it and we both picked Holloway. It was a really good main event.
Yeah,
What did you initially think about the way it happened, the way Holloway was the favorite, the way he
yeah.
discarded a great challenge with Arnold Allen.
Man, great card. Like, a good card. There was some great fights in there. But whenever Max Holloway's on top of that card, we know we're going to get an entertaining fight. Regardless, we'll at least get one good fight, the Holloway fight. But we had some legends in there, had some Barboza. We'll talk about that later. Yeah, I wasn't surprised. I think when we were making the picks, what I mentioned was Max Holloway's fight experience, or championship experience, is going to come to the forefront, and he's obviously going to come in with a point to prove. Seems like that was very accurate. He was quite fired up after the fight. He was. Yeah, it seemed like he had a message for his haters, doubters, and he silenced them. Obviously, Arnold Allen was, no slouch. He came in and he took the fight to Holloway. We know that if you if you go 5 rounds with Holloway, and if you're standing, and if your name's not Alexander Volkanovski, that means you've done well. There were some tactical errors from Arnold Allen's point of view as well. There was a lot of talk about how that sometimes the lack of urgency in the middle rounds, and that's correct. When you're fighting someone like Holloway, who's a volume fighter, who's throwing combinations so frequently, you got to be able to keep it up because you cannot afford to fall behind on a fighter like with a fighter like Holloway. I think that's sort of what happened. And when he did start firing up, which was the last round, which by no means was a runaway round, but it was just more. We saw Arnold Allen, put on the pressure a lot more. It kind of had Max Holloway in trouble a little bit. Caught him with some good shots. But overall, I felt like Max Holloway did enough to sweep that fight. I actually thought it was 4-1. To be honest, I felt Max Holloway was getting stronger and stronger as the rounds progressed. But then that obviously fifth round, I felt Arnold Allen took that round. Look, it was a good fight for Arnold Allen as well. But his win streak's now gone, the 10 fight win streak. And that's the risk you take. You put everything on the line. Like we said before the fight, he could have hung back and waited for Walt to defend his title, or wait for that matchup to play out, and then probably going for the winner. It's 10 fight win streak, and then a win off Kevin Cater warrants that. But no, that wasn't the case. Big name Holloway, he took that fight on. Had a bit of a gamble, and obviously didn't come out on top. But nonetheless, I still felt, you know, at the end of that fight, damn, this guy is good. Like he's a real featherweight contender. Like it's not like it was anything where it was just one sided. I remember when
Yep,
Holloway fought Calvin Cater, it was very one
yep,
sided. When he fought Brian Ortega, it was very one sided.
yep.
Whereas in this one, I didn't feel like that. I just felt Arnold Allen did give a good account of himself as well, but um, it's just that Max Holloway was the better fighter, and as what I thought was his championship experience came to the forefront, and he applied that well.
Yeah, let me ask you, and I agree with what you said, and I think the way it unfolded, right? Do you think Allen, given how exciting the last round was, there was some critique on Allen's
Mm.
strategy to not
Yep.
to not go harder,
Yeah.
not knowing he was down. What did you think, like knowing that, he was basically in a phone booth near the end, and I
Yeah.
was on the edge of my seat. I was just
Yeah,
wishing we
man.
got that from the beginning from Allen.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That end of that fight, end of that round was very reminiscent of the Holloway Ricardo Lamas fight, where they point to the mat, and then I've mentioned this part of that fight many times. It's just because it's such an iconic moment. It's one of my
Legendary.
favorite moments, man. Like they just point to the ground. Holloway points to the ground, and they just throw down. And they're both standing.
Yeah.
Look, yes, I do feel Arnold Allen should have pressured a lot more, right? Especially if I mean they would have been aware, him and his corner than him would have been aware that, hey, we're behind. We need to do something. It comes down to like, was it an energy conservation? Was it that? Was it what was the strategy behind it? I'm keen to see in the coming days when he comes out and speaks about and reflects upon it. I'm keen to understand the thought process behind it, but we don't know. Like, was it conserving energy and having faith in your power? Obviously, I don't know, that was quite powerful. If you recall, he TKO'd Dan Hooker when he made his featherweight debut, right? So he's got some dynamite in his hands. Maybe he was relying on that, and in the last round, he had the freedom to unload his gas tank. But the thing with this is, you're going against a guy who's known to absorb a lot of strikes, but hasn't been knocked down yet, right? So you need to be very careful when you apply those kind of strategies. You've got to be absolutely certain. Um, what I'll tell you what surprised me, Max Holloway's approach surprised me a lot, in a good way. We've seen. I feel like there were some tools added post Alexander Volkanovski's trilogy. The reason I'm saying that, we've seen Max Holloway always, pressuring, sometimes even more recklessly, which is what results in him absorbing all those strikes. We saw a more patient, measured Max Holloway. While there were those exchanges, like you said, the end of the fifth round, he still was a lot more measured. It didn't. I didn't see the usual Max Holloway that, regardless of whether he's having success or not, he's walking forward. He was
Yep.
cutting the angles really well. I think he was landing those shots really well as well. There was some notable body kicks, man. Like, it echoed across the whole arena.
Man.
So yeah, look, man, Mac's a real guy. Like, he's a real contender. Like, no jokes.
Yeah, and what are your thoughts now on knowing the result, but that frustrating, I would say, no man's land where you're so much better than everyone else, but you're not better than the actual champ. And it's
Yeah,
like you've cleaned people out. It's like people love Max, and
yeah.
then given he got not even it was close with Volkanovski, he got absolutely dominated. So is it just the fact that Volkanovski's that much better than him, and Holloway just has to keep fighting the next, um,
I mean,
you know,
it's the same scenario that Robert Whitaker is at with in the middleweight division. Really, really good, all well-rounded fighter who's been able to take out anyone who's been put in front of him, other than the current champion, Israel Adesanya. Same thing, Max Holloway. Although I do feel the gap. I mean, at least from what I've seen, the gap between Whitaker and Israel Adesanya seems a lot more closer than that of Volkanovski and Holloway, based on
yeah,
the last fight,
agreed.
right? But that's also testament to how good Volkanovski is, right? I think
Mm,
before going into that third Max Holloway fight, Volk was still not getting his dues, right? And the people were still doubting, we were still uncertain. Now, sitting here today, we've seen him fight Holloway. It was a one-sided domination. And then we saw him fight Islam Makhachev, which, many people, including myself, thought he won. And we're now, in hindsight, this is arguably one of the best pound for pound fighters in the world, and that kind of makes sense. So, like, you're going against that, so it kind of not really validate, but makes sense as to why Holloway found it so difficult. And with Volkanovski, his activity allows him to improve so much, and he pushes himself. His work ethic, and what he puts in there, right? I mean, absolutely a immovable champ, I would say.
yeah.
But it brings that big problem. What's next for Max Holloway? And we discussed this briefly in our preview. Well, if Max were to win, what happens, right? I feel like what we discussed a little bit got hinted. But look, I want to ask you first, though, CT. Like, what do you think? What do you think Max should do first? If you are Max Holloway's manager, what would your advice be to him?
Yeah, well, I think the best way is just to raise your stock, raise your name. If there's
Yep.
people that aren't excited that to see the fourth or fifth or third or whatever match, just continue to beat who's in front of you. And
Yep.
there's some talk, or there was some rumor on the Helwani that we never got to see Zombie,
Yep.
and we never got to see Zombie in Holloway. And I know that's not going to excite people, but
Yep.
for me, it's about principle. Like, just clean out some people who you haven't fought yet,
Yep. Yep.
and do that, because at least at least there's something new. At least before you go do a replay, At
Yep.
least you're beating quality veterans or other deserving fighters that you haven't had a chance to beat up on. But I guess
Yep.
for Max, like he's just got to understand that he took a really bad loss to Volkanovski.
Yep.
See, one thing you will know, DJ, when you lose a fight as a fighter, there's two ways to lose. You could lose actually gaining stock where the fans are like, man, let's run that back. Like, that was so close. I understand how he lost, but I would love to see that again. And then there's
Yep.
a loss where it's like, man, absolutely dominated. I don't care to see that again. Would
Yep.
you agree?
100%, man. I
Okay.
agree. Like, I think at this point, the Max Walk 4 does not excite me, right? I just think it's just not. Apart from that second fight, the proof has been in the pudding. It's been pretty clear as to who's the better fighter among them, right? Um, well, Yair Rodriguez and Alexander Volkanovski are potentially fighting in July, right? I just, as you were saying that, I pulled up the featherweight
Yeah.
rankings. Max is currently ranked number two, right? And
Mm.
that's where he will stay because obviously Yair Rodriguez is an interim champion, so he's not
Yeah.
going to go above him. But if you really look at the list, right, champ aside, he's actually beaten the interim champ, right? Max Holloway, that is. He's beaten Yair Rodriguez. Brian Ortega's three. He's beaten him. He's beaten Arnold Lau just then, who's number four. We got Josh Emmett at number five. Holloway and Emmett haven't fought. We got Calvin Cater at number six, who also was beaten by Holloway. We got Korean Zombie at number six. Giga Chikadze, very interesting. We haven't heard much from him. He was a big player until that loss to Cater.
Mm.
He probably needs to come in and get a win before he can challenge someone like Holloway. But having said that, Holloway's mentality is he'll fight anyone who's in front of him,
Yeah.
right? Now, for me, if
Where's
he wants to
50K?
50K Ige, all right, he's number 13, man. He's a bit further
Okay.
down. But hey, listen. This is what I like. If Max Holloway decides to stay in the featherweight division, right, goes without saying. If there's a few scenarios to play out here, but if Volkanovski beats Yair Rodriguez, I mean, if Yair Rodriguez wins, it's no brainer, right? You make Yair Rodriguez versus Max Holloway too, because especially because
Yeah.
Holloway has a win over that, or win over Yair Rodriguez. If Volkanovski wins, right, and call me biased, I feel he will. If Volkanovski wins, right, you gotta have Max has got to have at least a couple of fights before we even start talking about challenging Volk again, right? Now, the only other way where I see him claiming is if he can claim some interim gold. And Volkanovski's made it no secret that he wants to go and challenge Islam again, right? Or the 155 champ. So we might have another opportunity later on for another interim title. Now, there is a fight that's happening between Josh Emmett and Ilya Topuria, right? Ilya has been breaking through the ranks, right? He's crashed into this top 10 and he's currently ranked number 9. He's fighting Josh Emmett, who's number 5. If he were to beat Josh Emmett, and I think Ilya Topuria is a fantastic fighter, he can claim for a fight against Max Holloway, right?
Mm.
Which cements it. It's a win-win for both. I mean, if Max can beat someone who's been surging as Ilya Topuria, right? That sort of again pushes him a case. I still feel there'll be one more fight to follow after that, and then if Ilya were to win, the kind of gets that next contender, right? Because
Yep.
obviously Arnold Allen's just had a loss, right? So he was
Yep.
mostly considered to be that next person. So
Mm.
look, there's a few things. It's like a Rubik's cube, man. You got to keep like maybe not the best example, but you just got to. It depends on how things play
Yeah.
out. There's some
Storyline.
different
Yeah.
storyline. Yeah, correct.
Like, yeah, Whitaker was talking today on the Helwani again about
Yeah,
like similar to the middleweight. It's a
yeah,
jigsaw, but it's all about how the UFC can sell it as a
yeah,
storyline. Like as a three-part. Let's say you're making a movie series, a
yeah,
trilogy. You want a storyline to it. I
yeah,
like exactly what you just said. I think Emmett lost to Yair, but I was there in the building in Perth, and it was a good fight.
yeah.
Emmett's tough as nails. He's ranked what, fifth. He deserves to
Fifth at
still,
the moment. Yeah,
yeah, he
yeah,
deserves to a fight or a win or two away from getting himself back
yeah,
in that contention again. And
yeah,
yeah, let's see. I think Max might just have to chill a little bit, wait for the
Yeah.
Yair and Volk to play out, but
Yeah, let's see how that goes. Yeah.
just yeah, just be there, just keep winning,
Yep.
just keep
That's what
winning.
it
And
is.
hey, it's the same way we hope Whitaker can get
Hmm.
that third fight with Izzy.
I was just about to say, just like what Whitaker said, like via Helwani, which is keep fighting, keep beating the guys who get put in front of me. Like, and there's no case.
Mm,
There will definitely be a case to challenge for that. What else am I supposed to?
yeah,
That's
but
I'm pushing the
what's
case.
next? What's next for Allen, DJ?
Well, he's still in the contention, man. I don't think his stock went down too much. I think he gave a good account of himself, right? Like I said, there were some tactical errors, but there were some shots that he landed too. Like that fifth round was bananas. It was a really good round. So I think Arnold Allen probably. Hey, is Brian Ortega coming
Mm,
back? Maybe Ortega
yeah,
was his Arnold Allen.
London.
Um, it could be London, yeah, it's a London card. I think Dana says it's going to be a fight night now with Leon Edwards not fighting. So yeah, maybe even Arnold Allen. I strongly feel Aspinall will headline that card. Um,
Yep.
but yeah, Arnold Allen can fight. You look, I know that we saw the Calvin Kattar fight, but it stopped with a doctor stoppage by injury. So maybe we see that again. I like the Arnold Allen versus Brian Ortega fight. And hey, don't get me wrong, I like the Max Holloway and Korean Zombie fight as well. It's just a legacy fight. You know what I mean? Two veterans of that division. It's ridiculously crazy that keep calling Max Holloway a veteran just based on his fights and his time in the UFC. But he's still young, man. He's like 31. You know, so
Yep.
uh, but look, not looking too far ahead, just to sort of wrap the main event up. I just thought it was a very good win for Max Holloway, and he kind of reminded everyone, "Look, I'm still the man."
Yep. Yep. Definitely. Yeah, it was great. And watch this space because yeah, it's getting exciting with the Volk Yair not far
Yep,
away, early July, and we'll talk
I
about
think
it
July is
soon.
planned.
But
Yeah, yep,
there's rumored cards in Australia to be headed our way in
yep,
September, October. So
yep.
I think they're definitely going to want to get down here and get a stadium show. Adesanya says he wants to be incredibly active. Was already messaging Hunter
Dana
Campbell and Dana after
for a
the
fight.
night after his win.
Yep,
We know how Volkanovski doesn't want to keep the division up, and he wants to be active in two divisions.
yep,
So we need these Aussie fight. Like, yeah, if they're putting their money where their mouth is, we could expect
yep.
to see them a lot.
Yeah, 100%. Look, I'm not like holding my breath, but if it does happen, super keen to. Obviously, I missed out on being able to be being present in person for the last one, so I'd love to be able to make my way with you, CT, to go sit cage side and watch these fights, right? So yeah, absolutely, man. Like even if it's a fight night, you can bet that Whitaker will, if he doesn't get booked into a fight soon, we might see him in that card too. But keep in mind, fight the international fight weeks fastly approaching. Very soon in the month of July. So um, we know that traditionally the UFC stacks those cards, right? So if you have these kind of fighters like Whitaker, Costa, Hamzat, they're all hanging around with no fights booked. You can bet that some of these big fights will get booked for that
Yeah.
international fight week, right? Um, right. Now, featherweight. I feel like you got all the bragging rights for this one because we did the picks and I went against the veteran, right? And I went with Billy Quarantillo. But man, Edson Barboza was a vintage Edson Barboza. What did you think of that fight?
Oh, classic. Yeah. Huge knockout
Yep.
with the knee.
The knee to the
That's
head,
why
man.
he's a fan favorite, and the UFC love him. He'll continue to get
Yep.
big attention.
Yep.
And yeah, I thought Quarantino was humble in defeat. I saw his social
Yep.
media
Yep.
posts and stuff, apologetic, but paying credit.
Yep.
Um, he'll
Yep.
be back. But
Yep.
yeah, just good to see one of those exciting fan favorites do what they do
Yep.
best. What did you think?
Yep. Absolutely, man. It was credit to Edson Barbosa. I saw a pattern in terms of Quarantillo, uh, entering in for the takedown after setting it up with some strikes. I don't think he sensed that pattern. If you saw it, Quarantilo was using the same combinations just a couple of minutes prior. So timed that knee well and got him flush, and that's it, man. That's all she wrote, right? So yeah, great win. It's ranked, I think I said, he's ranked 14th in the featherweight division. But I think Edson Barboza's in a place where he's fought legend after. He's got a legendary resume. He's fought legends himself. He is a legend himself. So I think he finds himself where he starts doing these kind of exciting fights, and gets paid, rightfully so. Um, so yeah, look,
Yep.
great win there in the core main. It was a quick one, first round. We had a light heavyweight bout. I don't know if you caught that one. Dustin Jacoby versus Morisa Karnov. This was I don't know. It was a very interesting fight, man. Like the first two rounds, Morisa Karnov. His first name's Azamat, so I'm going to use that. Okay, so Azamat was winning it easily. He took the two rounds clearly, and then in the third round, he was gassed. And Dustin Jacoby needed a win, needed a knockout to win. And I don't know, for some weird reason, he decided to grapple him and try to like take him to the
Mm.
ground. Kind of should have capitalized. And look, I mean, it's easy to sit here and talk about these things. They're in the cage. You don't know what's going through their mind. So like, obviously, you gotta appreciate that.
Mm.
But yeah, I just thought it was a very bad tactical decision on Jacoby's behalf. He had him where he needed him to get that knockout win. The knockout he needed to get the win. So yeah, it's a bit of
Yeah.
a missed opportunity, unfortunately.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, and to your point, you never know sort of in the fight, you don't know if a fighter's hampered with a particular injury or they're hurt,
Yeah,
and they've just got to cling on and try a different strategy. But
yeah,
sometimes, yeah, sometimes to your point, it is that bad tactical decision.
yeah.
Um, but also maybe they're yeah, some been hampered or they're gassed or they're just yeah, out of juice.
Yeah, absolutely. But nonetheless, a win for the Russian. And then obviously,
Mm.
we had Barboza, coming out from heavyweight into the light heavyweight division, take on Kutelaba, and found himself on the losing end. Boza, that is. It was another KO TKO, man, first round.
Yeah,
So, yeah, look,
savage.
it was savage. And, you got to think how much that weight cut compromised him.
Yeah.
Right, because he was quite good at heavyweight as well, so like you got to think of that. Well, it'll be interesting to see what he does next. Would he go back up? Especially if he finds himself in that pivotal point where they are fighting in Canada soon. There's a fight card in Canada, so like a win would have set it up nicely for him to get featured in that card. He still probably can get featured. It'll just be interesting to see what he decides to do.
Mm.
Um,
Yep.
and then we had a bantamweight bout: Pedro Munoz, Chris Gutierrez. What did you think of that?
Nice. Yep. I thought that was a an interesting fight. It sort of set the stage
Yeah.
for the event, but I mean nothing
Yeah,
too
no implication.
surprising.
Yeah, yeah, I felt the same. Like no implications. I wasn't a big fan of this matchup. It didn't
Mm.
really do too much. Chris
Yep.
Gutierrez was coming in with a win streak. He had just knocked out Frankie Edgar. Pedro Munoz really, like, a win over him wouldn't have done much for him. Yes, Pedro Munoz is a big name in that bantamweight division, but he's also had a slew of losses in the past few fights. So, and he lost to Frankie Edgar himself. So, yeah, but nonetheless, like he obviously put up a good fight. Like it was a good fight. It was a unanimous decision victory for Pedro. Again, it will be quite interesting to see where this goes for Pedro from there, right? Like
Yep.
so, well, the main card starter was the Clay Guida versus Rafa Garcia. It was a good fight, but obviously it was unanimous decision. I agreed with it. Um, Clay Guida was on the losing end of that, with Rafa Garcia having his hand raised. But I guess the spotlight was more taken from the post-fight antics of this fight, where he pretended like he was gonna retire, and to the extreme frustration of the UFC president, he made a joke out of it and obviously decided to say happy birthday to someone. Sure, he's regretting it now. I don't think he thought about it in the moment, But hey, man, like funny scenes at the end of that fight.
Yeah, I guess you could sort of think, yeah, well, that he was thinking in light-hearted moment of just, making the joke. But when you really deeply think about it, like that's taken seriously by the UFC. When a fighter is ready to retire, they
Yeah,
want to give that fighter a great
yeah,
platform to do
yeah,
so, to
yeah,
announce it, to say something, whatever they want to get off.
yeah,
To make that is a bit of a mockery. But
yeah.
I'm
I
sure
mean,
there's some regret.
yeah, yeah. I mean, they say it was because he wanted some airtime, and obviously we know unless you're the main event, the loser doesn't get any airtime. And he wanted to say happy birthday to someone. That's why he was wanting the airtime. But we don't know like what was going through his mind. So, um, man, there was a couple of fights I want to touch on in the prelims, but before that, quickly, I want to mention Zach Cummins and Ed Ehrman, who both retired, long-term UFC veterans, both decided to hang it up. So we wish them all the best. Man, like the feature prelim, right? Bill Algeo versus TJ Brown. And that ended in a submission win for Bill Algeo, but gosh, that fight was like a back and forth, drama-filled, explosive fight, man. One of the such a high-paced fight. Like I enjoyed it so much, and rightfully won fight of the night. So, what did you think of that fight?
I missed that one actually.
Oh
I
damn,
missed
man, you
it.
got to
So
rewatch it. You got to rewatch it. So the first round was quite back and forth. A lot of damage inflicted on each other, and then obviously the second round we got that submission. But
okay,
exciting fight, one of those exciting
yep,
fights. Um, and no surprises at all from the flyweight bout between Brandon Royval and Mateusz Nicolau. We expected it to be fireworks whenever Brandon Royval fights, and he came out with the win.
yeah,
Um, Round one, KO or TKO. And Dana White himself admitted, look, this guy
yeah.
needs to be in the main card. He's a main card fighter. We made a mistake, and yeah, look, we get it. I mean, his fighting style speaks for itself. Even when he loses, right? He's still in exciting fights. So
Yeah. Why do you think, like, given it was a fight night and wasn't the strongest main card, why
yeah,
don't you think he was on it? And
I don't know.
why do fighters like that find themselves on a preliminary card?
It
You
is
know,
very interesting, right? And he was also fighting a guy, the number fifth
like,
ranked guy in the flyweight division. So it was very odd. Seems
yeah,
like Dana White wasn't aware, judging by the reaction in the post-fight presser. It could also be sometimes the matchmakers think, "Hey, we need some attention onto the prelims as well." So we put a big name in
yeah,
there or an exciting fighter, so people
true,
start tuning in.
yeah.
Um,
But to have the Clay Guida one
yeah,
as the main event, main card opener,
yeah,
compared to that,
yeah.
reeks
I
of a bit,
agree.
bit clownish,
I agree, man. Even I get it. Dustin Jacoby was a Kansas City local, and I understand the thought process behind it. But given how that fight panned out as well, I mean, you can't predict how the fight turns out. But still, when you have got a guaranteed explosive fighter in Brandon Royval, you just this is it's an easy decision. You just take that on and put him in the main card. We will most likely be seeing him always in the main card or probably in a feature prelim, I would say.
Yeah, yeah.
Hey, here's a question for you, CT. Overall, if I were to ask you to rate this card out of 10, what would you give this?
Great question. Thanks for putting me on the spot. Um, Look, for a fight night, it's kind of on par, on pretty average for what
Yeah,
I come to expect now. In
yeah,
terms of top heavy, a
yeah,
couple decent fights, a couple names, but I think we saw a bit of everything. We saw a good finish from
yep,
Barboza, from Cutelaba.
yep,
We saw some young guys impress, like you said, on the earlier guys impress on the prelims.
yep,
Um, Overall, a pretty well-rounded fight night. Out of 10, would you say?
yep.
I'll give this one a 7.5.
Oh, nice one, man. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yep. How
I
about you?
myself I was hovering around the seven mark. Yeah,
Yep.
hugely saved by the big main event and some really great performances from the likes of Edson Barboza, the feature prelim between Algio and DJ Brown and Brendan Royval. and yeah, some other knockouts as well. But
Yep.
overall, like when you compare this to like the I don't know, I remember the Houston one was huge, the London fight night, those ones were huge. So
Oh
in
yeah.
comparison, I would say yeah, like a 7.5. I think is a solid
Yep.
score. Yeah,
Yeah, but in terms of being top heavy and the fact that UFC is traveling now, go to Kansas City, for them to be able to see two quality fighters like of title worthy
yeah,
contention in Allen and Max Holloway in a main event, that's
that's
great
huge.
value. That's
That is
that's
great
great
value.
value
Yeah.
for anyone attending, and if
And
you
even
if you're
for
in that
us,
city,
yeah, and even for us, like watching it from home. But I mean, if you have the subscription for us here in Australia, it's free. It's free for us. The fight's free. You don't have to pay it on
yeah,
pay per view, and to see
yeah.
such a high level fight between two top contenders, it's really great.
Yeah, the roster's so deep where you can't have everyone on pay-per-views. So
Yeah,
the fact that every fighter needs 3 fights or 5 fights a year,
yeah,
there's going to be stacked fight nights, which is
yeah,
great. Great for the subscribers, people that can't afford pay-per-views. We can't
yeah,
always assume, DJ, every year people might have to choose which pay-per-view they buy. If you've got 5 kids, 3 kids,
yeah,
you know, you work hard for your money.
yeah,
We can't
yes,
can't assume everyone can pay $60 a month
yeah.
for a pay-per-view.
And the yeah, I absolutely agree. And the current climate's not very conducive to be dropping a lot of money on pay per views. So
Yeah, we're thankful for the sponsorship, for That's a
yeah,
Tap, that we
yeah,
we we do we do get to see
yeah,
it all. But
yeah,
like I said, yeah, we were always thinking of everyone and their circumstance.
yeah,
But these fight nights are just awesome. That's how I became a fan, to be
yeah.
honest.
The
Because
fight
yes, I
night,
was
they pulled you
yeah
in.
I was lured by the big bright lights of the pay per view and the big matchup. Remember during COVID when there was like a card every week, where every
Yeah, man,
weekend, I was
that
like,
was
man,
huge
what's
for us.
this? Like 1 week I'm watching Holland like knock people out. Then the next week he's fighting. Then Hamzat's like fighting through dudes again. I was like, man, is this what it is every single week? Like, forget
Yeah,
about boxing.
yeah, I know, right? I know. Nah, look, it is pretty exciting. I think the UFC model is very exciting as well. That's why they keep raking in these new fans on a regular basis, as well as
Mm.
sustain the
Social
existing fan
media.
base. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
it's how you get the viral knockouts and the the Barbozas, the Clay Guiders antics. You get all
Yeah,
that just churns their social media
fucking
train.
Buckley.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah, it's been a
yeah,
great
man.
episode wrapping this thing up, and yeah, we'll be back for a preview of a nice fight night this weekend,
Yep,
where we do have a huge um, main event, which is Blades
Blade.
Pavlovich.
Absolutely. And
Ooh,
depending on how this Stipe Jones negotiation goes, if something were to fall out, you can easily say the winner of this fight will slot in to take
yep,
that spot. So yeah,
massive, yeah. Curtis Razor Blades
razor blade. I don't think Pavlovich
versus
has a nickname, does he?
Sergey Pavlovich. I just, I just made that up.
Oh yeah. Let's
Uh,
see. He might have layers like a Pavlova that we have not seen, and he might just get the victory
yeah,
going.
yeah. Before we
But
end
yeah,
this
man.
episode, I'll ask you, give me two of your most favorite fighter nicknames.
Oh, all right. Here's the thing, right? I wouldn't say favorite, but it was just like so. Pedro Munoz, his middle name is or nickname is Young Punisher. I don't get it. Like, what? Um, in terms of nicknames, I mean, I am a fan, obviously, but I'm a fan of both these people. I like this. There's many. There's these two come to the top of my head.
Mm.
I like the notorious Conor McGregor for multiple reasons, purely because everyone's got the middle name in the middle, or the nickname in the middle, whereas he just like notorious Conor McGregor. That itself was trend setting. I like the Last Stylebender. I think it's a really, really cool nickname. I like
Yep,
that.
yep.
Um, Yeah, I mean, like Reaper, Whitaker, that's another big one. There's a lot. There's a lot, to be
Nice.
honest, if you really think about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll give you two of my favorite, and one's more of a just an awesome, serious nickname, and one just is a bit funny, lighthearted. The
Yeah.
lighthearted one's Andre Touchy Feely.
Yeah.
That's a good
It's a
one.
funny one. Yeah.
Dan 50K gay
Oh,
because
you
he's
like the
always getting the
50K?
50K.
All right. You like the 50K. I've noticed it even when we're talking offline. You always mention 50K. You don't even say his name.
Yeah, yeah, he's always about that bread. But
Ah,
yeah, probably my favorite serious one is Yoel, Soldier of God,
yeah, that
Romero.
was a good one. That actually was a good one.
You know
Yeah.
the way
Spider Silva.
he does that
Yeah.
salute, and
Salute. Anderson Spider Silva. I don't even think about it. There's a
yeah,
lot. There's a
yeah.
lot you
Drop
can
us in
choose.
the comment section what your
What's your
favorite
favorite nickname?
fighters and your and their nicknames are, and
Clem
we'll
Clabber
we'll we'll shout it out at the next episode. Oh no, that's
That's
a
it.
tap.
And let's put a nice ribbon and